Welcome to the Upshift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. And today's guest is Elizabeth Bruckner. I did say that correctly, Elizabeth? Yay. Elizabeth, amongst being an acupuncturist, is going to tell us about homesteading today and permaculture and how that actually affects your overall wellness. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me, Angel. I'm excited to be here and chat with you.
Thank you. See, we were chatting a little bit before the show and we started getting into some really cool topics, and I have to stop my guest. I'm like, stop. Let's do this on the podcast. Anyway, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit more about your journey, because acupuncture and the 5 elements can bridge into this permaculture, but tell us how you got there.
Okay, let's back up even before acupuncture, because for the longest time, I was not a holistic practitioner. I didn't get into grad school until my 30s, and I'm a recovering vegetarian. So I used to, for 27 years, I know, isn't that, I love that little, I'm a recovering vegetarian. For 27 years, I did not eat meat for ethical reasons, not necessarily health reasons, but I was told in my teens from teeny bopper magazines that I was reading that it was unethical to eat meat, that they were doing terrible things to meat, and also it's healthier to be a vegetarian. So I did that for a long time. I never knew about regenerative farming, which we can talk about, or true farming, where you're mimicking nature. Joel Salatin says you let the pigs be pigs and you let the cows be cows and live the way that they would have lived naturally, and then have healthy meat that then creates, a good sustainable body. So all this to say, I went into holistic medicine very sick. I was tired all the time. I had a lot of problems with headaches. I was addicted to sugar. My moobs were up and down. But I thought that this was just who I was. I was just a very, I was artistic and sensitive, and that's just, who I am. And I still am artistic and sensitive, but I have better blood sugar stabilization now, which
Super interesting topic there.
Right?
Yes.
Because a lot of people think that you had one guest on, Heather, who talked about pausing, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, in my 20s, I didn't even know what pause meant. Like, it was just react, react, react. And it was mostly because my body was so out of balance. And I thought that I was broken, but it turns out I just wasn't giving myself the right fuel. So it's kind of like trying to run a car on Windex. Like, cars don't run on Windex, right?
My big fat Greek wedding, huh?
Yes.
Everything.
Let me tell you, my dad, it was kerosene. Like, he was always washing his hands in he was a mechanic when I was growing up. And it was like, I remember thinking, like, this can't be right, but all right. Like, if something happens, you put kerosene on it. I think Windex is less expensive and not as flammable,
wow.
but
Talk about toxins coming in through the skin.
Right?
Right?
And that is the world that I grew up in. We were a microwave family. I was a latchkey kid, which means that there weren't parents at home. We were basically just parenting ourselves because they were working really hard and they didn't know how to cook. And so none of that was in my sphere when I came into holistic medicine. I came because I wanted something fulfilling and I wanted something sustainable. Healthcare is sustainable. And the idea that I'm outside of the Western wheel, the big ag, big pharma, big food, all of those big things I wasn't a part of. Acupuncture kind of slides under the radar. It's not important enough. And yet I can make incredible change with helping bodies heal themselves. So that was my first touch in it. And then throughout the master's degree, you learn about nutrition, herbs, and acupuncture all at the same time. And I kept hearing that food is important. And one of my teachers, sweet woman, who once graded my face. She was like, you're like 87% beautiful, but with a really funny accent, which was hilarious. I don't know why I'm telling you that, except that, like, it was just, English was her second language. So she just walked up to me and she's like, you're 80% beautiful, 80%. I was like, oh, well, at least I'm 80%. I don't know. Actually, I gave myself an extra 7. She said 80. I'm 20% something else, 20% tired, maybe. But the other thing that she told me was, she said, you can't, if you're going to be a vegetarian, you have to Buddha all day. And you're not Buddha-ing all day. You're going to be going and helping people get better. And I was like, all right. But, Western medicine and my culture says it's absolutely fine. So all of that to say, then I had a healing crisis. And I think if I had a theme for today's conversation, I think this is one that you probably have a lot of insight on. It would be the art of receiving, because I refused to receive. I was fiercely independent. I was super strong-willed, and it got me, those tools were very useful in a chaotic upbringing and in a chaotic 20s and 30s, but it's not sustainable. Being fiercely independent is not sustainable. We are social creatures. We're supposed to be connected to our community. And I wasn't even willing to receive myself, like from myself, like self-care. That was just out of, it was out of my it was kind of a blind spot. Like I knew I was telling patients you need to practice self-care. And then I was coming home and going, I will when I get the dishes cleaned. I will when I finish writing my book. I will. Like it was always something else. There was someone else with an urgent matter. I needed to be of service. There was no receiving. And because of that, I got very, very sick. And in that sickness, I was bedbound for weeks, homebound for months, and then I was unable to work for years. And so it was like my body was saying, "Oh, you don't want to receive? Okay, well, here's the lesson. We're going to stop everything. The train is off the tracks and you've got to receive." And so it was then that I started rebuilding my life from a nutritional perspective. So homesteading started then, although I didn't know that that's what homesteading was. I started fermenting food because when I was homebound, I was well enough to pitter patter around the house, and I wanted to be of service because I still wasn't getting that I need to receive part. So I was like, well, what can I do where I'm not going to get sick, but I'm also going to be able to help my family? And I bumped into fermentation, which is just
Mm.
taking some salt water, some vegetables, and increasing the vitamin count in letting it sit on your shelf for a few days and increasing the probiotics. And so I knew enough about that as a healthcare practitioner, but then I started doing it. Now, go even further. I'm getting much better. I'm having real foods. I have started eating meat. It took a long time to get my enzymes back up. So there was a lot of discomfort initially because you stop making enzymes for foods you don't eat. And 27 years of no meat is a lot of missing enzymes.
Yeah.
And so then the pandemic hit. And I remember going to the supermarket and seeing that the shelves were empty. And more importantly, there was no produce. Like our produce section has now been cut in half. It's never been increased back to what it used to be. And our farmers markets were closed. And I went in and there was no garlic and no ginger, which are two incredibly important herbs in Chinese medicine for helping with respiratory issues. So I was planning on making some fermentation tinctures. They weren't there. And I came home scared. And what I've been told by a very wise friend is the prescription for anxiety is action, but I didn't know what the action was. So at that point, the action was just to say at the breakfast table with my husband, I'm really anxious about this. I don't know. I don't like not seeing food. I come from a family of war refugees. Like I've been told the stories of
Mm-hmm.
famine. I've been told the stories of not having enough to eat. And I believe that that stuff is kind of generational trauma. Like I remember what they have told me. I took it seriously, and now it's happening in our own neighborhood. And he said, "Well, why don't you consider growing food?" And I stopped and I took a breath and I'm like, "Do you remember who I am? Like, have you seen what I've done to the garden?" Our garden was complete concrete, lots of dead plants, nothing lived. And I would go to the garden store, buy a plant, ask them to give me the plant that won't die. Then I would promptly kill it in 2 weeks, and then I'd go back and kill it. I was just an endless, vicious, murderous cycle. I'm like a mass murderer of plants. And so then I started learning, and at this point, I started figuring out that you can learn more on YouTube than makeup tutorials and cat videos, which is initially what I thought YouTube was.
Right. Right.
And so I started typing in gardening, typing in growing your own landscaping, and this word called homesteading kept coming up. And I was like, what is that? Now, most people think homesteading is ma and pa kettle. You grow your own food, you fight off bears with a rifle, you make your own clothes. And as you can tell, I did not make this lovely little pendant that I have on. I have clothes that I've bought. They're mostly cotton. They are real material, but they're not homemade. And I live in the suburbs with concrete in my backyard. I have blackberries growing in my concrete driveway, and I have cassava, which is a type of starch. It's kind of like a potato that you can cook up.
Yeah.
And so the original homesteading, which we can get into if you want to, is very different than modern homesteading. Modern homesteading is a mindfulness practice. It's an intentional way of living to create, to connect with our own innate resourcefulness.
Okay, modern homesteading. I do want to go to this, not putting yourself first. I mean, our listeners, no matter how evolved we all are, I was just having this conversation with my editors, and it was the difference between self-esteem and confidence. And it seems like you were right there with what I would consider somebody who is like uncoachable, not receiving, not putting themselves first, because you kept saying, I'll do it when this other stuff, hey, self, you're second to or third to about a bunch of stuff. I'll get to you, self. And that would be maybe based in, you can comment against me on this, on low self-esteem versus high confidence, because you were a go-doer. You were a go-getter. I can do it on my own. I need nobody. And what an interesting subject just to touch on, because your body, your system said, hey, I ain't going to work any longer. And we are going to literally, because we've probably been giving you messages and messages and messages. You can't keep this up. You can't keep putting me third, fourth, fifth on the list. You can't keep putting everything ahead of me. Okay, you're going to continue this. Boom. We're going to take you right on out and put you in a position where you have to. Am I speaking what that kind of was for you? Because I'm making a point that I'll make later with your homesteading of these small little increments of successes. I believe you did for your own self-esteem by putting yourself first. Am I striking a note with you?
Yes. And the person I was 10 years ago would have said absolutely not.
Right.
Because
They can't receive.
I just couldn't receive. I could receive feedback, but I didn't think I was scared. I was like, if you were to speak to me 10 years ago, people would be like, she is a powerhouse. Like nothing scares her. And everything scared me, but I just wasn't. I think there was a part of me that was like, I can't let that shine through, because if that shines through, I'm going to crumble. I'm going to turn into a puddle.
Yeah.
And that's not true. You actually end up being incredibly more strong and connected and able. And you create strength with your community when you are seen.
Right.
Vulnerability is, yeah.
There you go. Vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I think for the longest time until I got sick, I had probably about 10 people that would call me on the regular for advice. And when I got sick, I called a few of them. I'm like, I just can't right now. I won't be able to return any calls. And I remember one of them, bless her heart, she would continue to call me thinking she was helping me feel better. She was just leaving messages, and the messages would be all about her.
Boy.
Because I trained her to do that. I trained my friends at that time that I was the go-to and that I was the pillar. And pillars turn to salt if you're not careful. And so when you talk about self-esteem and was there a lack of self-esteem, again, I would have argued, absolutely not. I've done lots of therapy. I've done so much work. And, but I was confusing self-worth with achievement.
With confidence of you can do anything.
That's right.
You could, you did.
That's right. And I think that when it comes to self-esteem and self-worth, it is our birthright. We are, like, right now, if I do nothing else today, if I get off this, I have to go pack. But if I don't get up and I don't pack and I just get off this podcast call and I sit down on the couch, I'm not any less worthy of breathing or taking up space. And sometimes you need to get on the couch and rest in order to create energy to become something that's going to make. I'm not saying we veg out forever, but you will get tired of vegging. And so I used to think if I'm quiet, if I'm resting, if I'm not doing it in a prescribed version, like I could do an hour of meditation, but that's something I could check off my list. But just 15 minutes of staring out at nothing, drinking some veggie juice, that is not acceptable. And that was because I didn't realize that I had inherent self-worth. And those that are listening that may not believe that, just like me, they're like, I don't, I get stuff done. You get stuff done, but are you taking care of yourself? I remember during the illness, the next thing that I started doing, because I love books, I'm an avid reader. So I went to the library, or maybe I had them ordered, and I got every book I could on time management because I thought my problem was time management. I thought if I could just color code and use labels and stickies and block out my time, like that would make it so much better. That would fix it. I'm obviously not time management. But the problem wasn't time management, it was priorities. I was not
Hmm.
prioritizing the art of receiving.
Yes. Oh gosh, that's such a wonderful song, The Art of Receiving. That's actually beautiful. So thank you for leaving that little thought in our head. I am going to jump to homesteading though.
Yeah.
I love the fact we don't have to go into old time homesteading because I think our audience is going to be more about, well, what do we do now?
Hmm.
So describe, I let you, you touched on it, but
Hmm.
what is homesteading nowadays? So I live in a downtown condo, right? I'm
Hmm.
got concrete all around me. But tell me how I could even homestead or anybody that lives this way. What is homesteading nowadays?
That's a great question. So I'll answer it in two parts. The first is in the book, I take three different family types. A single girl in Houston, Texas, like super, living with roommates, no patio, nothing. Suburban couple with two kids, and then retirees in the rural area. And I talk about how homesteading can happen in every single one of them. Let's take the character of Tamara, who is in the urban setting. And in her case, she's not like you. She's working poor. So she's working as a barista, doesn't have a lot of I mean, I don't know. I'm like saying, she's not like you. I don't think you're a barista. You're doing, you're writing books. Like you're a different social economic status than her, which means you have a little more freedom. And so, but let's take it from someone who doesn't have monetary freedom. She's working there and she really decides that she wants to start connecting with her food. So the first thing that she does is she learns how to cook, and she does it in a very slow, methodical way, but without much method. She didn't buy a book on learning how to cook. She said, what are three meals that always made me happy? Well, taco night with my best friend was what made me happy. So I'm going to learn how to make tacos. And I'm going to, for me, and a lot of this came from how I learned. I didn't know how to cook until my 40s, mid 40s. And so I learned how to bake a chicken. Like that was the first thing because every recipe that I looked up online, I always made sure that it had less than 3 steps because if it had more than 3 steps, I wasn't going to do it.
Wow,
Because
that's
my,
great.
oh, it was fantastic. You can make a fantastic chili, you can make a baked chicken. So the first thing that I learned was a baked chicken. And the beautiful thing about a baked chicken is you wipe it down with a little water, you throw some fat on it, like chicken grease or butter, you put some like three herbs, salt, pepper. I like chipotle to make it a little spicy. Throw it in I have a toaster oven. I don't even have an oven because my kitchen is really tiny. You put it in there and now you've got 5 meals. You've got chicken, and if you have a side like a potato, you have chicken salad, you have chicken sandwiches. We're going to take some chicken sandwiches from my baked chicken on a road trip because it's really easy to eat. Then you can have chicken soup. And then lastly, you can take the carcass and make meat stock, which is really healing for your gut. So that's one thing that someone in an urban area could start. The next thing is buying a basil plant at the grocery store. You don't even
Mhm.
need to go to a garden store. Just buy the basil plant, stick it in your windowsill, snip off a few pieces, throw it in whatever meal you're eating, or put it in water. Today I have my lemon balm, the herb lemon balm in my water. So I just let it sit there for a few hours, and now it's got this great spa taste to it. I feel like I'm chic and popular and cool with my fancy water. And it's also incredible for anxiety, depression. It's really good for mood stabilization. So for those that are going to be doing podcasts and they're nervous, lemon balm is your new thing.
Ah,
And then the next thing that she did, if we want to go even further, because she's taking it in increments, she started walking around her neighborhood and she started going to farmers markets and understanding that there are people that you can speak to that are farmers, that you don't have to go to the middleman, which is the grocery store. Then she eventually borrowed a plot of land. So in a very a very urban area, a lot of times there's
community gardens.
stairways. Yeah,
Yeah.
community gardens. I like them, but they're kind of posh and they're kind of HOA. You've got to get in, you've got to write an essay, you've got to be on the waiting list. Like, but I say create your own community garden. So go up to a neighbor that has like a little patch of dirt. Like I'm sure when you're walking in your city, you've seen like the stairs next to someone's entry and there's like this sad patch of dirt. If you go up to that person and say, hey, I would love to create something beautiful here and share half the herbs with you, are you up for it? Let me tell you, if somebody knocked on my door and said, I'd like to make your house better, like, I'd be like, yes, please. So
Right.
that's another way that you can kind of reverse engineer. We can do community gardens, but let's say there's a waiting list, you can create your own community garden.
Mhm. Love that. Love that. So it sounds like this first step in homesteading is really about taking your meals inside your house, making them, not having someone else do it. It's about your hands making your meals and you eating it. Is that right? That's kind of the first step.
That was my first step. I would say that it's not outsourcing your food, which is a good way to put it, right? I was outsourcing. I would go get baked chicken from the grocery store, but I didn't know what they were putting on it. That was my first step, but for someone else, their first step might be composting. They might go, I want to take the veggie scraps that I have every day and I want to make a compost. And you can do that in an apartment as well. If you have a worm bin or, there's lots of ways that you can create your own compost. So it depends. That's the beautiful thing about homesteading. There's many spokes to the wheel. So that's how I started fermentation and cooking. But for others, it might be I'm going to start considering getting rid of all the plastic in my house and reducing the toxic waste. So for me, typically my deodorant is like coconut oil and maybe an essential oil if I want to smell nice, or just lemon juice on my
Mhm.
armpits. And it neutralizes any odor that you have. That might be the first step in homesteading. So homesteading kind of intersects with sustainable living. It intersects with minimalism because you don't need a bunch of stuff. You can create things here. So yeah, if somebody's like, I don't really want to cook, my husband cooks or my kids do a lot of the cooking, I really want to go out and grow some tomatoes, that might be their first step.
Mhm. In your book, so
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about your book because it sounds like do you have like some bullet points for people to start with? I mean, just hearing lemon balm was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of because I did it with storytelling in mind. And I love that I'm on a podcast that is completely about mindset, and my book is the Homesteader Mindset. But you can translate this into anything. And so what I did was I took these three stories and I had each person go on a different journey so that you could see ways that homesteading could start. So Tamara started with cooking, but I think Jim and oh my gosh, I forgot her name. Jim and Sarah. Jim and Sarah started by downsizing and starting to habit stack. So they started because she was unable to work because she got hit by a car, she was in a car accident, that they had to kind of downsize before, and they were starting to teach homesteading to their children. She taught her children how to cook, and then she started creating different lifestyles. At the end of each chapter, there's what I call easy breezy end of chapter tasks because I wanted it to be easy. This book is very light. It's not a difficult read. It's a fun read. It's an inspiring read. And it also gives you a lot of ideas like, oh, I could do the lemon balm. Who knew? Like healing herbs in the kitchen is a big deal. You can do a lot with a pharmacy in your kitchen. And so I touch on each of these things. And then the book is so encompassing that we have to be careful for it not to be a 600-page tome. I wanted to be able to, pick it up and take it to the coffee house, put it in your purse. And so I then created a free resource connected to the book. And that gives you like if you want to learn about composting your dog's poo, like you can do that for fruit trees, then I have a website that you can go to that shows you. So and again, because of you talked about this as well, like as opposed to competition, I created community. Like all
Yeah.
of the resources I have outside of my book, some in the book, but most of them outside of the book, that's that resource that you can get. It's all other people. And someone was like, I can't believe you just share other people's stuff. And I'm like, why not? They're shining the light. Why would I not want to increase their light, especially if I don't have a video on that particular thing?
We're stronger together. And you
Absolutely.
found that being a loner was not healthy. Your
No,
your body actually told you that.
that's right. It's
This
dangerous.
homesteader mindset. Okay, so there's a book and it's by Elizabeth Bruckner. My homesteader mindset, Amazon. Yeah.
Yes.
Right there. So look for it there. I want to move into the wellness part of the homesteader mindset because that's really the shift where it becomes natural to look for these things. It's kind of like you start the gunpowder and the way you go. And now your whole mind shift is on a homesteader perspective. You're looking through the glasses of a homesteader now and not whoever you were before then. So tell us about the mindset shift. What is the perspective difference of a homesteader versus someone who's just not aware?
Well, I can speak from my own experience, and I think the number one thing is that we outsource our health, we outsource our wellness, we outsource our happiness. And when you're forgetting about the art of receiving, you're thinking that if so and so would do this, then I would be happy. If only I had this, then I would be happy. And I would challenge you to find happiness now in tiny, tiny bits of joy. And so I didn't have that. I had if I achieve this, then I'm going to feel peaceful. I'm going to feel connected. And I don't think it's an accident that first I was a healthcare practitioner and then I became a homesteader, because now I'm looking at it from a medical perspective. My little glasses, my perspectacles that I have on, my perception and spectacles mixed together, my perspectacles are showing me like, oh, this is what homesteading is doing. And so a lot of that has to do with the gut microbiome and how that creates happiness. I think that a lot of people that are in the unawakeness, which is, don't worry, my doctor knows what he's talking about, or don't worry, my husband's going to make me happy this for my anniversary.
Okay.
Yeah, oof is right. I mean, and I say this from experience. Like, I remember one year I told my husband, I was 30 at the time, I'm like, I don't need a birthday. I don't need a birthday gift. I don't need to be material, blah, blah, blah. Then my birthday rolled around. I started crying. And from then on, he's like, I will always get you a birthday gift. I'm like, that's a good idea. But then it went even further. I'm like, I need to start giving myself incredible birthdays. And so this year, my husband was working. We were going to celebrate on a different day, but it was my birthday. So I called a friend and said, I'd love to go out to lunch for my birthday. And then I went to a museum and hung out at a museum all by myself, which was one of my favorite things to do. And I used to do that in my 20s. Why am I not doing it now? Why am I not giving myself that happiness? I was so filled up from that day where I asked for love, I received it, and then I gave myself love, that when my birthday celebration with my husband came around on his day off, it was like icing on the cake. I mean, it was amazing. And so that's the shift, is when we start going, we're going to stop outsourcing our happiness, our joy, our health. And that's not to say you don't have a good doctor. Like, I'm not saying don't go to the doctor, or if you break your leg, don't go to the emergency room. Don't get that from this. That's really silliness. Instead, it's,
Thank you for clearing that up for everybody.
You just never know. There's going to be some post out later.
Sign a waiver before you listen to this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that people, and I will say that one little kind of tidbit that I forget to mention to people is I'm in my 50s and I don't have one lick of pharmaceuticals in me.
Yeah,
And
great.
that's, and no supplements either. That's just, except for fish oil. But I think that it's not to say everyone should do that, that it should be your goal. I just want people to know it's possible. You can live pain-free. You can live depression-free and anxiety-free without outsourcing that health.
So it sounds like once you make yourself a priority, it's like that is, and through that, I love this perspectacles.
It's hard to say.
Perspectacles. I love
Yeah.
that. Through that perspective, then what your choices in life, when you start to look at yourself, start to consider yourself a part of the equation, and actually just not down on the bottom part, but on the top part, it doesn't mean you deprive people. That's what's interesting. It means that you are so filled up that you don't need them. You're not a needy person. They don't have to make you happy. And for parents, I mean, I get the intimate relationship and not depending on your person to make you happy, but parents especially, not to depend on their kids. It's too much for them.
It's too much.
To be the clowns and the entertainers for their parents. Okay, I want to go back to the self-esteem and this is what I was talking about to my editors about this new book coming out, and is the self-esteem versus confidence. This is going to go into your perspective of the little joys. And I was asked the question, how do you build self-esteem? I'm like, just like you have to know where you are. You have to know where you are, wherever that is. If you're overweight, if you're sad, if you're depressed, it's like, where am I now? It's okay. That's just a point in time. Those all can go away, but you have to start and be okay with, embrace where you are now. Where this is crossover with you, which I love, is to have small successes, small joys, to follow the joy path. People are
Yes.
like, how do I know that this is right for me? It's like, how do you feel about it? Like
Mm-hmm.
trusting that feeling. So how is that in your homesteader mindset, these follow the little joys? I call it setting yourself up for success, not jumping off the high dive and you have never dived into a pool.
Mm-hmm.
It's like step by step. How does that, I want to hear it from Elizabeth's point of view, these small joys, these small increments, and then building up that Santa sack of lovely successes. Tell me the Elizabeth point of view on that one.
Well, there was an author, Laura Doyle, who wrote a book, The Empowering Wife. And I read it because a friend of mine recommended it. I had a friend that was a psychologist. And I said, I had another friend that said, do you know any marriage counselors? And I said, no, I don't, but I'm going to ask my friend for you. And she said, I don't recommend marriage counselors. I recommend this book. And I was like, that's crazy. I'm not going to give someone a book until I've read it. So I read it and it was fascinating. And it's about marriage, but it's mostly about when you practice self-care, you actually expand time. And the way that I can think about this is I used to think I didn't have enough time. I've got to work 16 hours to finish that task. And then what happens about 10 hours in is you become less efficient. You
Sure.
become less effective.
Mhm.
So you're crunching time. You're like doing, you're spending 80% of your time and you've got 20% energy. And it's just going to be lots of mistakes, lots of fixing, lots of errors.
And regret.
And regret. I think unless you keep yourself too busy to even realize that you have regret, and then you wake up 10 years down and your kids are grown and you haven't spent any time, doing anything in terms of the present moment, then you're like, what happened? And so the first thing that happened for me was I became my own expert. I trusted my body. My body was telling me what needed to happen. And then I took that because I learned languages and I learned how to create habits through languages. I learned how to create language learning through habits. And with that, I took that and started changing my whole life. Like anything can be changed with small successes. How is this possible? Because I thought Magic Mondays did exist. They do not. I thought you start on Monday and you clean out your whole house, and that may work for some. But for me, it was little tiny successes, little tiny shifts. And that started with daydreaming. So I always recommend to my readers and to my patients, if you could wave a magic wand, what would be the most incredible thing that you would like to do?
Yes.
And then yes, right? It's so yummy.
It is envisioning that day in the life, I call it, the day in the life of that.
Yes.
The you in 2 years, when you've accomplished these things. But keep going.
Yes. So for me in 2 years when I was very sick was I'm going to be able to travel again with my husband. And what's that going to look like? We're going to be walking the streets of Paris and I'm going to be able to walk for an hour and I won't be sick. And I would just notice it. And in homesteading, it might be, I want to have backyard chickens. I want my own fresh eggs. I want to hang out with chickens. I want to have fun with them. Alice Walker wrote a great book called The Chicken Chronicles, which will make you love chickens. And what does that look like? So you're just imagining yourself going to the backyard, getting eggs, coming in, making an omelet, having a happy family breakfast. And then you start very small. What's the first thing that you can do about raising your own chickens? Well, the first thing you could do is listen to a podcast about chicken rearing. And what is that like? And what does it entail? Or maybe you're going to go on Instagram and you're going to grab a chicken account and start looking at chickens. And then you're going to use found time. So this is time that whenever you reach for a distraction, you're going to reach first for that daydream, for one step in that daydream. And then you can do your distraction. So the example would be you come home from work, you didn't prioritize your time because you're not there yet. You're exhausted. You plunk down on the couch. You're going to cook dinner in a minute. You take your shoes off and then you turn on a Netflix thing. And next thing you know, it's 5 hours later and you've wasted your entire evening. So what if you just for I'm going to do all of that, and for 5 minutes before I turn on the Netflix, I'm going to just listen to 5 minutes of a podcast or just read one page of the book that I wanted to read about this thing that I've been daydreaming about. Then I can close the book, and then I can turn on Netflix and do the 5 hours if I happen to, sadly I can't get out of that yet. But there's this one bit of hope there. There's this, oh, I did connect. Today I did something for my dream, whatever that dream is. And it will eventually, that will increase. And so the book talks about how to make those tiny little incremental, that seems like nothing, right? So what? You watched for 5 minutes and then you wasted your day and you didn't make the meal. Yeah, but for 5 minutes, that 5 minutes can change your entire life.
I love that. I love the small increments. I'm taking notes, by the way. That's why I keep looking down. I was like, oh, this is great. The perspectacles. Look for distraction. So I have, I laugh at myself. I say I'm the queen of distraction. And I can get deep into my writing. And then all of a sudden it's like, I almost run from my writing. It's like I'll do anything for a minute not to do that, which will look like snacking or shopping on Amazon, these things. And I would rather connect to the dream. I love that. When you're looking for a distraction, reach for your dream, even if it's for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Just that's almost like that 11:11 meditation that people do every day at 11:11. It's like that moment to stop. It's a very magical number. And some people see it a lot. But it's that moment just to stop, take 2 minutes, take a breath, and that could be connecting to your dream.
Absolutely.
Most people use it to be thankful. But I love this. You're giving us such incredible tidbits of information to go away from this podcast with you with usable things. I love that. I love things to be usable. They've got to be usable.
I'm so practical. Like I am so practical. I do lots of things, but it always boils down to, can I explain it in an accessible way? And can you use it? If not, then we're just gossiping.
Right. Okay. So we're coming to a close now. I want to thank you very much, Elizabeth, for the time that you've taken with us today and your Homesteader Mindset, which everybody can get on Amazon, by Elizabeth Bruckner, my guest here on this podcast. And if you could leave us, you've left us a lot, one nugget, leave us with one nugget of inspiration, maybe to light the fire.
Ooh. Well, I would say for focusing on the art of receiving, because that's what I feel really called to talk about today, is imagine yourself going somewhere you normally go and just create a magnet. So create a magnet for goodness. The example that I give is the other day I was like, I'm going to go to the farmer's market and I'm just going to receive. And so I just imagined goodness coming to me. And in that goodness, someone came up to me and they're like, you have the most beautiful scarf. And I was like, wow, thank you. And then another farmer that I know was like, I just made this new thing. I want to give you a sample of it, and gave me a gift that they had made special for me. And it was because I was open to receiving. I was open to enjoying those moments. And so if there's some homework, just today in your daily life, go into work, go to the supermarket, wherever you're going, and go, I'm just going to receive right now. And then feel it come to you. Now, I do have a free gift for your audience.
Oh, yay.
No, because I like to receive, but I also like to give. If you are interested in creating habits in these tiny little incremental ways, I have a Homesteader habit tracker, which can be used for any type of habit. And in it, it gives you a few steps on how to create attainable goals, not those big life-changing goals, but those little itty bitty ones that I'm talking about. And you can get that by going to my website, which is www.createwellnessproject.com/gift, GIFT.
Love that. And it's a habit tracker.
It's a homesteader habit tracker. So it focuses on homesteading, but you can create whatever habits you want. And as I said, there are many spokes to that homesteading wheel.
Yes. Oh, Elizabeth, thank you so much. You are a giver and you've taught us how to receive. What a wonderful, wonderful, holistic point of view and person you are.
This was so much fun. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you to our guest, Elizabeth Bruckner of the Homesteader Mindset. And thank you, my listeners, for listening. I'm your host, Angel Howard, and I would love to get to know you better. send me an email at angel@angelhoward.co, or to book me for a speaking engagement, come over to my website, angelhoward.co, or dive deeper into your own journey of self-discovery and buy my book, Issues in Your Tissues, on Amazon. It was great being with you today, and until next time,